My name is Rachel Bennett, and if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have told you I had everything under control: career, apartment, future. But last Sunday, in the middle of what should have been a normal family dinner, my dad passed me the gravy boat and asked one question that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. So, has the money helped with your situation? Time slowed. Forks froze, eyebrows raised. I blinked. What? Money? He said it casually, like he was asking if I wanted more mashed potatoes. But in that one moment, my entire family's web of secrets unraveled right in front of me. My mom went pale. My brother wouldn't meet my eyes. And I realized I was the only one at the table who didn't know what he was talking about. And that was just the beginning. What started as pot roast and small talk turned into a revelation about lies, money, betrayal, and what it really means to love someone. Before we go deeper, I want to ask you something. Have you ever found out your family was hiding something from you? Something huge? Or maybe you were the one hiding something? If that's you, or if you've ever felt like the person holding it all together when you're actually falling apart, hit that like button and subscribe, because what you're about to hear, it's not just a story, it's a mirror. And it might just change the way you look at your own family forever. Let's start at the beginning, because this story, it doesn't begin with a lie. It begins with a secret no one wanted to say out loud, until someone finally did. I used to think being independent meant handling everything alone, that success meant never asking for help, that pride was strength. I'm Rachel Bennett. I'm 29. And for the last 6 years, I've lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, chasing a version of success I thought would make me immune to failure. I worked in corporate finance, wore tailored blazers, ordered overpriced lattes, and lived in a downtown apartment with skyline views. I called it making it. My parents called it running away. My relationship with my mom, Linda, has always been complicated. She's the queen of passive-aggressive affection. She'll knit you a scarf but criticize your career choices in the same breath. She's sweet, kind-hearted, deeply Southern, and armed with guilt like it's a second language. My dad, Greg, is a man of few words and deep convictions. He built his construction company from scratch, brick by brick, sweat by sweat. He believes in hard work, loyalty, and fixing things with your hands instead of your heart. Growing up, he wasn't the emotional type, but when he taught me to ride a bike, bait a hook, or change a tire, I knew he loved me. Then there's Ethan, my older brother by 2 years. The golden boy. He stayed local, joined Dad's business, married Claire, his high school sweetheart, and they're now expecting their first baby. He checks all the family boxes. Meanwhile, I was the one who said no thanks to the family path and carved my own. And that's where the tension started. When I left home, it wasn't just a change of address. It was a declaration of independence. I didn't want the safety net. I didn't want the fallback plan. I wanted to prove to myself and to them that I could thrive on my own. And for a while, I did. Promotions came fast, my savings account looked healthy, and I felt like I was finally earning the respect I craved. But success is a fragile illusion, and the higher you climb, the farther you fall. I didn't tell anyone when things started falling apart. When the company I worked for underwent a sudden leadership shakeup and my position vanished in the chaos, I smiled through phone calls and said, "Things are great." When I moved out of my high-rise into a rundown studio where the heat barely worked and the neighbors screamed at each other through the walls, I said, "Just downsizing to save more." That's the thing about pride. It doesn't scream, it whispers, and it convinces you that asking for help is the same as admitting defeat. So I kept pretending. I didn't know then that my family, especially my mother, had been watching me more closely than I thought. And they weren't just watching, they were acting behind my back. It started with a meeting request titled Team Realignment. That's how they soften the blow in corporate. Make it sound like a strategy, not a slaughter. By the end of the day, 30% of our department was gone, including me. I remember walking out of that building with a manila envelope and a forced smile. I told myself I'd bounce back fast. People like me don't stay down. But the truth is, pride can't pay rent. I had just signed a lease on a bigger apartment, city view, gym downstairs, valet, trash pickup. I had upgraded my car too. Nothing flashy, but new. Reliable, professional looking. Everything I thought I needed to match the image of someone who had it all together. I drained my savings faster than I expected. Rent, insurance, groceries, medications. You don't realize how much your health relies on income until your prescription costs more than your weekly groceries. I started skipping meals, then cutting corners, designer handbags. Gone to consignment, fancy wine nights with friends, replaced by instant noodles and silence. Evenings got lonelier, mornings felt heavier, but the worst part, the migraines. They started slow, a dull throb behind my right eye. Then they escalated, pulsing, blinding, days-long headaches that left me curled under blankets with the curtains drawn. I couldn't work, I couldn't even think. I didn't have insurance anymore, and the medication that used to cost me $30 now cost over $300 out of pocket. But skipping it wasn't an option. Without it, I couldn't even make it through a basic job interview. I tried, I really did. I submitted resume after resume, polished my LinkedIn, practiced interview questions. But showing up with shaky hands, greasy hair, and a headache brewing behind your skull isn't exactly a confidence boost. And rejection started to feel personal. Still, I lied. During phone calls with my parents, I smiled through clenched teeth. Oh yeah, just waiting on the right opportunity. Staying busy. Trying not to rush into anything. I told myself I was protecting them, but really I was protecting myself from their pity, from their questions, from the subtle disappointment I knew would be hiding behind their smiles. And when Mom asked if I needed anything, I said what I always said. I'm fine. Except I wasn't. I was terrified, but I thought I was hiding it well. Until that night. Until the gravy boat. Until my dad's question exposed everything I'd tried so hard to bury. The invitation came in the form of a group text from Mom. Family dinner this Sunday at 6, pot roast and cobbler, don't be late. Classic Linda Bennett. No questions, no wiggle room, just you will be there. I stared at the message longer than I should have. Normally, I'd make some excuse. Busy week, big deadline, long commute. But this time, I didn't have any of those. And honestly, I was too tired to argue. So I texted back a simple, I'll be there. The Bennett house sits on the edge of a quiet neighborhood in Matthews, just outside Charlotte. Brick exterior, wraparound porch, the same wind chimes that used to scare me as a kid still hanging by the front door. It smells like apple cinnamon and something deeper, like memory. I arrived right at 6, as instructed. Not early, not late, just obedient. Mom met me on the porch, apron dusted with flour, smile a little too wide. There's my girl, she said, pulling me into a hug that lingered half a second too long. When she pulled back, her eyes scanned my face like she was checking for cracks. You've lost weight, she said, voice soft but concerned. I laughed it off. Just busy. You know, deadlines and all that. Another lie, smooth, automatic. Inside, the house looked like it was set for Thanksgiving. Fine china, cloth napkins, the good silverware, for a Sunday dinner. Wow, I said, glancing at the table. What's the occasion? No occasion, Mom chirped too quickly. Just thought we'd use the good stuff. No point letting it collect dust. Claire and Ethan were already in the living room when I walked in. Claire beamed and hugged me tighter than usual. You look great, Rachel, she said. How's the new apartment? Her tone was sweet, but something in her eyes felt staged. Ethan couldn't quite meet my gaze. His smile didn't reach his eyes. He asked vague questions about how work's going and made a weird joke about downtown traffic. It felt like a play where everyone knew their lines but me. The small talk was sticky. The wine flowed faster than usual. Mom kept disappearing into the kitchen, then returning to rearrange the appetizer tray no one was touching. Ethan fiddled with his glass. Claire kept glancing at her phone. I should have known then. The script was off. But I chalked it up to nerves. Pregnancy hormones, family awkwardness. I didn't realize I was walking into a trap wrapped in pot roast and nostalgia. That night, they weren't just serving dinner. They were serving secrets. Hey, dinner hadn't even started, but the air felt charged, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for something to drop, only I didn't know what it was yet. We sat in the living room making small talk that felt smaller than usual. Claire asked if I'd tried the new Mediterranean place downtown, odd considering she knows I've been too busy for dinners out lately. Ethan asked about my office view, then immediately changed the subject before I could answer. It was subtle but noticeable. The worst part? No one would look me straight in the eye for more than 3 seconds. When Mom brought out the appetizers, she adjusted the napkin folds, twice, then wiped down the untouched counter with a dish towel that was already clean. Her hands were moving, but her mind was clearly somewhere else. She asked if I needed new baking pans, random, out of context. I said no. She asked again 10 minutes later. Then Ethan made a joke about communication being important in families. No setup. No punchline, just out of nowhere. I smiled. That's deep, I said, raising an eyebrow. He laughed nervously and sipped his drink. Claire touched his knee like she was grounding him. It felt like a rehearsal, like I'd walked into someone else's scripted scene and no one had told me my lines. The weirdest part? The table. When we moved to the dining room, it looked like Christmas, fine china. Crystal glasses, candles, napkin rings. The works. This looks fancy, I said, taking my seat. Seriously, what's the occasion? No occasion, Mom said again. I just thought we'd use the good stuff. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I noticed the flicker of nerves in her hands as she refilled the water glasses. Greg, Dad, joined us with his usual half-grunt greeting and poured himself a glass of iced tea. He seemed oblivious to the tension, or maybe he was just ignoring it the way he always did. That was his specialty. Let the women manage emotions, he'd handle logistics. He asked Ethan about a contractor dispute at the company, and for a few minutes, things almost felt normal. Then Mom brought up my cousin Samantha's wedding, Hawaii, destination. 4-day affair. I felt my stomach tighten. I hadn't booked anything yet. Couldn't afford to. Not just the flight and hotel, but the dress, the gift, the time off I didn't actually need but pretended to. I might not make it, I said casually, stabbing a piece of salad. Sam will be heartbroken, Mom said, frowning. Work's just hectic right now, I offered. Another lie, swallowed with wine. Dad spoke up next. Well, we could help with the flight. Consider it an early Christmas gift. No thanks, I said quickly. I've got it covered. He nodded, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, something he was about to say but didn't. That flicker would return soon. Stronger. Sharper. And the next time he opened his mouth, everything would change. Before we dive into what happened next, if you've ever felt like your family was keeping secrets, or if you've been the one pretending everything's fine, hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories that don't shy away from the messy parts. The pot roast was perfect, like always. Vegetables from Mom's garden, buttery and soft. The wine flowed. The conversation limped along. Dad was in the middle of a story about a stubborn city inspector when a lull settled over the table. The kind that normally means someone's about to stand up and grab dessert. But instead, Dad did something else. He picked up the gravy boat, passed it my way, and said casually, "So, has the money been helping with your situation?" The gravy boat hovered in my hands. My fork paused mid-air. I blinked. What money? It was like someone hit mute on the entire room. Dad's hand froze in mid-pass, still gripping the mashed potatoes. His face drained of color in real time, like watching a Polaroid fade in reverse. He looked at me, then at Mom, eyes wide with realization. Mom's wineglass trembled in her hand. Her eyes snapped to Dad's, then to Ethan, then back to her plate. No one spoke, no one moved. Even the clock on the wall seemed to tick louder, like it knew something was about to shatter. "Mom?" I said, my voice cracking just slightly. "What money is he talking about?" She set her glass down with exaggerated care, as if afraid any sudden movement would make the truth explode. "It's nothing, sweetheart," she said too quickly. "Just the care package I sent last month. You know, the granola, the socks." "Granola? Socks?" I stared at her. That's not what he meant. Greg, Dad, set the mashed potato bowl down like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Linda," he said, voice low. "Heavy. What money?" She opened her mouth, closed it again. "I was just trying to help," she whispered. That sentence, those 5 little words, ripped open a hole in the center of the table. "Help how?" I asked, my heart racing. "With what?" "I never asked for anything." She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes were glassy with tears, her mouth trembling. "I know you didn't. That's why I had to." Ethan reached for Claire's hand. Claire looked down at her plate, silent. I could feel it now. The truth, circling the room like a storm cloud, waiting to strike. "I need you to be honest with me," I said, louder than I meant to. "Where is this money coming from?" Mom took a shaky breath. "I've been sending you $2,000 a month since May." The words hit me like a punch. I did the math in my head. 5 months, $10,000? More than I'd made all summer. My chair scraped back as I stood up, dizzy with disbelief. "And you just decided that—" "Without telling me? Without telling Dad?" Dad looked stunned. "Wait, you've been doing this behind my back?" Mom flinched. "I sold some things, that's all. Things we weren't using." I didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning, because the things she sold, they weren't just objects. They were history, and they were supposed to be mine. I didn't wait for permission. I pushed back from the table and stormed into the kitchen, my footsteps sharp against the hard wood. The room smelled like vanilla and roast beef, but suddenly it all felt fake, fabricated, like a stage set for a play I hadn't auditioned for. Mom followed me a few seconds later, hands wringing her apron like she could twist her way out of the conversation. "Rachel, please." "No," I snapped, turning to face her. "You're not getting out of this with a hug and a slice of cobbler." "What money? Where did it come from?" She looked down, lips pressed tight, then walked to the counter and began rearranging dessert plates that were already perfectly aligned. A distraction. A delay. "Mom," I said again, louder this time. "What did you sell?" She didn't speak at first. Just stood there, breathing through her nose like she was holding back a scream or a sob. Maybe both. Finally, she whispered, "Your grandmother's jewelry." I froze. "I'm sorry, what?" She looked up at me then, eyes wide and wet. "The antique collection, the heirlooms, the ones we kept in the safe for you, for someday." I felt like the floor shifted under me, like gravity forgot how to work. "You sold Grandma's jewelry." "The pieces she wore on her wedding day? The necklace you made me try on when I turned 18? "I didn't know what else to do," she said, voice cracking. "You wouldn't accept help?" "You never ask, you always say you're fine, but I knew you weren't." I stepped back, needing space. Needing air. You sold part of our family's history without even asking? That wasn't just your decision, Mom. I know, she said, her voice barely audible. I panicked. Watching you slip away, watching you pretend everything was okay, I couldn't do nothing. Dad entered then, the kitchen door swinging slightly behind him. He took one look at us and frowned. She told me, I said, staring at him. The money, the jewelry. His jaw tightened. Linda, how much? She hesitated. 12,000 total. He exhaled like he'd been punched. 12, how? I started with the bracelet and earrings, she said quickly. Then the necklace. I got more in July for Rachel's birthday. I swallowed hard. I didn't ask for that. I didn't want that. But you needed it, she said, stepping forward. Even if you wouldn't admit it. That wasn't your call to make. The door creaked again. Ethan appeared in the doorway. He didn't say a word. Just looked at me, then at Mom. She knew, he said finally, gesturing toward her. About your job. She saw you coming out of the unemployment office back in May. Didn't say anything at the time, just called me crying. I stared at them, at all of them, and realized the truth. They'd all known. And none of them told me. Dad stood there like someone had just unplugged him from the wall. His face was unreadable, but his fists were clenched at his sides. You've been sending her money, he said slowly, turning to Mom. Without telling me, behind my back. I was protecting her, Mom said, voice brittle. And you weren't exactly being honest with me either, were you? The room shifted again. Even Ethan blinked like he hadn't seen that one coming. What's that supposed to mean? Dad asked, his voice suddenly sharp. You think I didn't notice the second mortgage? She shot back. The credit card bills under your name? The business account that mysteriously dropped below zero in June? He stiffened. That had nothing to do with Rachel. No, she said, stepping closer. It had everything to do with how this family works or doesn't work. You keep secrets, I keep secrets. And our kids learn to do the same. I felt like I was watching a house collapse in slow motion. You mortgaged the house? I asked, turning to him. Dad, why? He didn't answer right away. Just stared at the floor like it might offer him an escape route. The company had a cash flow issue, he said finally. A big contract fell through. Payroll was due. I did what I had to. And you didn't tell Mom? Ethan asked, his voice rising. She panics, Dad said. I didn't want to add to her stress. So instead, Mom interrupted, you put the house on the line. The same house we raised our children in. Without a single conversation, he rubbed the back of his neck. I was going to fix it before it became a problem. And I was going to help Rachel without anyone knowing, Mom snapped. Look how that turned out. Silence. The kind of silence that weighs heavy. That sticks to your skin. We're all lying, I said quietly. Every single one of us. Ethan shifted awkwardly. I didn't lie. You didn't tell me either, I said. You knew. You kept the secret. That's the same thing. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Claire's voice broke the stillness from the hallway. I think, she said carefully, that this family has confused secrecy with love. We all turned toward her. She stepped into the room, rubbing her baby bump absent-mindedly. You all think protecting each other means hiding things, but it's not love if it comes wrapped in silence. Her words settled over us like dust. She was right, and suddenly I wasn't just angry, I was tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of smiling through struggle. Tired of being part of a family that cared so much they forgot how to be honest. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about the patterns we'd inherited, and the ones we were about to pass on. The room was still spinning from all the revelations, but Claire's voice cut through the noise like a spotlight in fog. I've been sitting here, she said slowly, watching all of you unravel, and I can't stay quiet anymore." She walked fully into the kitchen, calm but firm. Claire had always been soft-spoken, the kind of person who smoothed tension instead of adding to it, but tonight something had shifted. "You're all so afraid of looking weak," she said, looking from one face to the next. "So afraid of disappointing each other that you lie, not maliciously, not to hurt, but because you think pretending is protection." No one interrupted her. Rachel didn't tell anyone she lost her job because she didn't want to look like a failure. Linda sent money in secret because she knew Rachel wouldn't accept help. Greg didn't say anything about the mortgage because he thought handling it alone was strength. And Ethan, she turned to her husband. "You let it all happen and stayed quiet because you didn't want to rock the boat." Ethan looked like he wanted to object, but he didn't. Claire continued, her voice gentler now. "But that's not love. That's fear. And fear isn't what holds a family together. It's what breaks it." Her words settled on us like a warm blanket after a storm. Not accusatory, just true. I felt something in my chest loosen, just a little. "I never meant to make things harder," I said softly. "I was trying to be strong." "You were," Claire said, "but strength isn't silence. And needing help isn't failure." Mom let out a shaky breath. "I thought if she knew where the money came from, she'd be angry." "I am angry," I admitted. "But not because you tried to help. Because you did it without telling me. Because you didn't trust me with the truth." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we all have a problem with truth." Ethan nodded slowly. "We've been doing this for years, acting like everything's fine, skirting around real conversations." "Because real conversations hurt," Mom said, almost to herself. Claire placed her hand on the counter, steady. "Sometimes they do, but they also heal." We stood in silence, the kind that wasn't heavy this time, but open. A fragile kind of stillness. "I don't want to do this anymore," I said finally, pretending. "Smiling when I'm drowning. I want honesty, even if it's hard." "Me too," Ethan said quietly. "I've resented you for years, Rachel. Thought Mom gave you special treatment, but I never said it, I just held it." I turned to him, startled. "And I never knew," I said. "Exactly," he replied. "Because no one in this family says what they're actually feeling." He was right. Claire was right. We were a family built on love, sure, but love wrapped in fear, filtered through silence, and that needed to change. We didn't plan the conversation that followed. It wasn't structured or polite. No one pulled out notepads or made a list. It just happened. The kind of talk that only surfaces when every lie has already been told. "I think we need new rules," I said. "For us, as a family." Mom looked up, her eyes still glassy. "What kind of rules?" "Ones that include honesty," I said. "Real honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, especially then." Ethan leaned forward on the counter. "So what? Like a truth contract?" "More like a pact," I said. "That we stop assuming we know what's best for each other and just ask." Dad raised an eyebrow. "Even if the answer is no?" "Especially then," I said, "because when someone says no, that's still information. That's still respect." Claire nodded. "Offer help directly. Don't sneak around. No more secret support." Mom looked down at her hands. "And if someone refuses help?" "Then you respect it," I said. "Or you offer again, without strings, but you don't go behind their back." There was a pause. Then Dad exhaled. "All right, fine. I'm in." That might have been the most emotionally vulnerable sentence I'd ever heard from him. "I'll go first," I said. "I want to pay back the money." "Every penny." "No," Mom said instantly. "It was a gift." "A secret gift," I countered. "One I didn't agree to. One that cost more than dollars." We locked eyes. I'm not returning it to you, I clarified, but I am starting a fund. For the family, for the future, not just for me, but for anyone who ever ends up in a similar place. Ethan tilted his head. Like a Bennett safety net? I smiled. Exactly, but above the table this time. I can chip in, he said. Not because I feel guilty, because I want to. Dad scratched his chin. We can call it something less sentimental, though. Like emergency ops. We all chuckled, the first real laugh all night. All right, Claire said. So honesty, direct help, mutual respect. What else? Family calls, I said. Once a week, everyone shows up, no pretending. Non-negotiable? Mom asked. Completely, I replied. Dad sighed. Do I have to be on video? Yes, Mom and I said at the same time. Another pause, another small smile. I guess this is what rebuilding looks like, Ethan said. Messy? I asked. Hopeful, he replied, and for the first time in a long time it actually felt true. It's amazing how much can shift in 90 days. Not everything, of course. Old habits don't vanish overnight, but cracks that once threatened to split us apart are now places where light gets in. We kept the pact. Every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. sharp, we log onto a video call, sometimes from our kitchen tables, sometimes from our cars, sometimes in pajamas with messy hair and takeout containers. No one's trying to impress anyone anymore. That alone is progress. At first, it was awkward. Dad fidgeted a lot. Mom talked too much to fill the silence. Ethan barely said more than, "Work's fine," or "Baby's kicking." But each week got easier. We started a tradition. Each person shares one challenge they're facing. Nothing has to be solved. No advice unless requested. Just listening. Last week, Mom admitted she was scared to return to work after nearly 30 years as a full-time homemaker. She's been teaching part-time at the community college now, creative writing for adults. And she loves it. She says it reminds her who she is outside of being a mom. Dad, surprisingly, confessed that he's been thinking about selling the construction company. Not because he's failed, but because he's tired. After years of working non-stop, he's starting to realize that rest isn't weakness, it's earned. Ethan talks more now. He says fatherhood scares him, that he worries he won't live up to our dad's example or worse, will repeat his silence. Claire supports him through it. She even suggested a baby journal where they each write letters to their unborn son. As for me, I got a job offer. Not from some hidden favor or secret recommendation, but a legitimate position at a tech firm right here in Charlotte. The pay's lower than what I made in my finance days, but the hours are humane, the team is collaborative, and most importantly, I don't feel like I'm constantly performing. I moved into a new apartment too. Nothing fancy, just clean, bright, and mine. My migraines are nearly gone. I've started writing again, something I haven't done since college, short essays. Personal stories, nothing fancy, just real. Mom and I meet for coffee once a week. Sometimes we talk about hard things, sometimes we just sit together and watch people go by. She doesn't try to fix me anymore, and I don't lie to make her feel better, the jewelry. What wasn't sold, Mom gave to me. A locket. Inside, a photo of us from years ago, taken at the lake. We're all smiling. Real smiles. And taped to the inside of the box, in her handwriting, were 5 words. Some treasures can't be bought. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that love can be both generous and misguided at the same time. My mom didn't send me money to control me. She didn't sell the family heirlooms because she didn't respect me. She did it because she was terrified. Terrified of watching her daughter spiral and not doing something, anything, to stop it. But love that hides in the shadows, even with good intentions, becomes something else. It becomes control dressed up as care. Fear disguised as protection. What my mom did was enabling, quiet, unspoken enabling. And what we all needed was something different. Support, the kind that asks before giving, the kind that respects boundaries, the kind that says, I see you struggling and I'm here, but I'll wait for your invitation. Real support doesn't sell heirlooms without consent. It doesn't slip money into bank accounts in secret. It doesn't assume what's best. It asks, it listens. It trusts. That's the hardest part. Trust? Because trust means risking rejection. It means hearing no and accepting it. It means allowing your loved ones to fail if that's what they need to grow. My pride played a role too. I wore independence like armor, not realizing it was cutting me off from the very people who loved me. I confused vulnerability with weakness. I thought asking for help was admitting defeat, but it's not. Asking for help is one of the most courageous things we can do. And offering help with transparency, with honesty, without manipulation, that's real love. That's the kind of family we're trying to become. It's messy. It's uncomfortable, it requires practice, but it's worth it. Because now, when we talk, we say the quiet things out loud. We don't whisper pain behind closed doors. We bring it to the table. Right next to the pot roast, right next to the laughter, right next to the truth. And in doing so, we're not just healing from what happened, we're rewriting what comes next. For our kids, for ourselves. For the kind of love that doesn't hide in the dark, but stands in the light and says, I'm here exactly as I am. That's support. That's family. If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more real-life stories about family, truth, and healing. Have you ever discovered a family secret that changed everything? Drop your story in the comments. You never know who might need to hear it. You're not alone.